right. Welcome to the Town of Dudley Board of Selectmen FAA joint meeting, Monday, October 3rd, 2022. First call to order. Without objection, Mr. Mayotte and myself will co-chair the joint meeting, and I will be presiding. Next, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if no one objects, I'm going to skip ahead to one part of departmental communication. Chief Wayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. The end of the month, I believe on the 22nd, some of these students from Nichols are going to be holding an identity march up at the campus, or up around the campus, some of the streets around there. So I just thought it'd be a good idea for the board and the public to hear from some of the folks that are working on it up there, from up at the school. So I've been in correspondence with Darian Waugh for the last couple of years. He's a second-year grad assistant at the college, doing a great job with some of the programs up there. So he's here with Mohammed Kamara, a student from Nichols, and William Rosa, who's also a grad assistant. Just want to give him a couple of moments just to describe what they'll be taught, what they'll be doing at the end of the month. No meeting is, no vote is required or anything like that. It's just more an informational thing. And I thank you for the time with it. So I'll introduce Darian. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Oh, it's kind of loud. How you doing, everybody? Like Chief said, my name is Darian Waugh. I'm currently the second-year graduate assistant for the Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Nichols College. I'll just keep it short and brief, really. What we're planning out on October 23rd at 2 p.m. is an identity march. It's kind of similar to the Black Lives Matters march we did, I believe it was in 2020. Except for this march, we're not protesting anything, we're celebrating. So at the identity march, what we're doing is collecting every student of different ethnicity, those who may be a part of the LGBTQA plus community, any type of identity that you represent yourself by. We're pretty much coming together and marching around, holding flags, banners, anything so you can represent your ethnicity or any identity you are by. And we're celebrating that by walking through campus, walking through segments of Webster/Dudley, I would assume, and just showing the people that we're very proud of our identity and that we represent well at Nichols College. So I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you've seen us and we're like marching, getting crazy, that nothing crazy bad going on. Just want to inform you guys to make sure, there's no issues at all. If there's any questions at all, you guys can feel free.
Any questions?
Darian, thanks for coming in. It's always good to see everybody expressing themselves as they will, and just getting everybody together. It's great. So thank you for coming in. I applaud this.
Of course. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to number 3. We have unfortunately, we have a resignation. Theodore Barron Sr., Cable Access Coordinator, resigning as of 10/28/22. Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept with great regrets the resignation of Teddy Barron as our longtime cable access coordinator. And I ask the town administrator or someone to send a letter on our behalf to thank him for his many years of service. Second.
Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take it a step further, maybe have Mr. Barron come back after his last date and be recognized again by the board. He has well over 30 years of service.
Absolutely.
He was actually the first cable coordinator the town had, I believe, so it'd be worth having him come back and give him a little something, a token of our appreciation.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I don't think it's like urgent or anything.
Appointments. Amanda Gage, Cable Access Coordinator, term to expire June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Isabella Johnson, cable access camera operator, term to expire June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I will abstain.
Oh, it's that?
Thank you. Okay, Board of Selectmen public poll hearing, poll petition. Am I reading the right one?
Yep.
I got nervous when you looked over my shoulder.
I didn't look. How's that peripheral vision working over there? I didn't move.
Habit, looking at the clock.
Poll petition number 2595258, National Grid and Verizon New England Inc., Oxford Ave. National Grid to install one JO pole and remove one JO pole on Oxford Ave. Right. Remove pole number 89 and install bigger pole 25 feet north of its current location. The closest address is 197 Oxford Ave. What's the board's pleasure?
Open the public hearing.
Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing at 6:47. Anyone here from National Grid?
Good evening. My name is Will. I'm a designer for National Grid, and this pole is basically just being moved. There's a solar generation site there, and the entrance is partially being blocked, I believe, by this pole, and that's why we are requesting that it be moved over 25 feet to allow access to the site and also to put our infrastructure on it for that generation.
Any questions? Any questions from the crowd? Hearing none. Close the public hearing at 6:49. Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve poll petition number 255-95258 for National Grid and Verizon New England on Oxford Ave to install one JO pole and remove one JO pole.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. All right. Board of Selectmen new business. Trick or treat, Monday, October 31st, 2022, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Would anyone like to discuss that? Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whoa, geez, hey, hang on, watch out, get your hair blowing back. We usually coordinate with the town of Webster, just to make sure that we're basically doing it about the same time. So this is the same time that they're doing it on that date. And the thought process is too, it still should be a little light out at 5 o'clock, so especially for the young kids, it'd be easier for them to get out and do some things while the light is out there. So that's what we would recommend, 5 to 7 on actual Halloween, Monday the 31st.
Thank you. It's the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we set trick-or-treat hours for Monday, October 31st, 2022, from 5 p.m. to 7.
Second.
Discussion?
This is very timely, Mr. Chairman. I got asked twice today about this, so thank you, Chief.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Unanimous. Next on the agenda, tie and bond, lead service line inventory and replacement plan. Mr. Duda?
I'm gonna actually defer to, this is authority for me to sign a project for the Water and Sewer Commissioners. Maybe the Water Superintendent could tell you what it's about.
George?
This is my authorizing the project for the lead service line inventory and replacement plan, George.
Good evening. This has been something that kind of came on rather quickly. This has been passed down from the EPA down into the states through the DEP, and now it's come upon all cities and towns. There is going to be a complete new lead line service program implemented through the state right now to all cities and towns to complete, which means we're going to have to compile research and development of all our water users, the homes, the years of the homes, the types of water services in the homes, from inside the home all the way to the water main. This is going to be quite time-consuming. It's going to take a lot of work and effort and expense. An engineering firm is going to be used to do most of this work. We'll assist in what we can. It's going to be a $200,000 venture. However, we are already on the top of the list for a $200,000 forgiveness loan from SRF to complete this, to do this work. So we're going to take good advantage of that. We have till October of 2024 to complete this research part of the program. If that is not done by that time, there will be some fines and probably some loss of possible future DEP grants. Once the research is done, it goes back to the state. It could take a while after that. They're going to look at all the material we have in other towns too, and they're going to have questions. They're going to have check off homes or businesses that will have to now go out and dig up services to inspect where there's areas of doubt that there could be still some lead in there. Possibly some pipes were reconnected and just patched up and not completely replaced. That happens a lot. So they want to make sure there's no doubt in anybody's mind that everybody is going to have either a plastic line or copper line and no lead goosenecks or type of unions that they may have back in the old day. It's not a program we were hoping for to happen this quickly, but it did, and it's here, so we're taking full advantage of it and doing it fast and get on it as quick as we can and stay ahead of the game. This is a lot like the PFAS program happened, same type of thing. I'm always...
Can I just interrupt you for a minute, George? I don't want you to go through the whole script quite yet. Just authorize me to sign if the project moves forward.
I thought I'd give them a quick tour of what it is since they may not understand what it is. Yep. You got my vote.
I just wanted you to keep your powder dry for the next another 10 minutes or so.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chairman, similar to the PFAS project, if this project goes forward, this gives me the authority to sign on payments to the note.
That's all that.
That's all that this specific item B is.
Yeah, because
Signatory
this needs
authority.
a lot more discussion.
This needs a lot more discussion, that's why I didn't want to get George too tired out.
Oh, okay.
That came up in capital too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is only if, so if you even read the text of it, authorized representative of the Media Act is the authorized representative of the applicant in connection with this application, that the purpose of the said loan, if awarded, shall be to planning activities that if said award is made, the applicant agrees to pay those costs which constitute. It's the same thing I'm doing for PFAS that the board previously authorized.
So during the FAA portion, I assume there's a warrant article that goes with this?
It sure is.
And then we'll talk about it then?
That's what I was thinking.
All right, that's a good idea.
We'll do it 2 times tonight, George, instead of 3.
All right. So
What's pleasure?
I guess this doesn't mean we're actually.
This only means that if the project moves forward, I'm the signatory
All right,
authority.
so moved on this.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
All
All right, next, I'm gonna defer to Chairman of the FAA, Mr. Mayotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first order of business, new business, is from the fire department. We have some emergency repairs. I think the chief is going to be requesting some, releasing some money. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Johnson, so you're aware that there's $25,000 budgeted amount in the FAA reserve line item.
Is that our full balance right now,
That's
25?
our current balance is 35.
For the members of the FAA, we have 25 in our FAA reserve account. So I guess I'll turn this over to Chief to explain what's going on.
Well, I did speak to Mr. Mayotte offline about this, so they knew it was coming up. So we've had some unusual repairs to apparatus and air packs. Everything highlighted in orange is either a vehicle repair or an air pack repair. The biggest one being at the end, which was the engine 3 repair for $9,994.03. The number circled in red at the bottom is the $19,362.31 is the amount of money we've spent in repairs in 4 months. And all the unhighlighted stuff is just the recurring costs that come out of the expense account every year. So that leaves me with $1,322.83, or 3.78% of my fire expense line. That's all I have left. As you know, we're trying to replace engine 3. I've already put tens of thousands of dollars into that truck and trying to keep it going. So these were like unusually high costs, but I couldn't just not repair it. So the repairs had to be made. So I'm looking for the money to replenish my fire expense line. And this is just a copy of my spreadsheet of the fire expense line. It's every item I've spent since July 1st, so it's accurate to the penny.
Chief, do you have any additional expenses coming up that you know about, repair expenses? That
I don't, but I haven't done the annual PMs on my trucks yet, and that's $5,000 or $6,000.
Right, so
And I don't know, engine 3, something's breaking on it every 2 minutes, so.
when do you do the PM service?
Usually in August.
August?
I held off on it because of this.
Now, that would be covered under your new budget, I'm assuming, right? Your new, for fiscal '24, any of those?
Oh, this current budget we're in, I haven't done it for this budget year yet. We do it annually.
Okay, okay. So this is just to replenish what you got in case these expenses keep coming up.
Right, and this has never happened to me before in 12 years, so, I mean, I've never been even close to this low.
Well, when you keep old equipment, that's what you're gonna do. You fix it. Does anybody have any questions on FAA for Chief on this? No questions at all? All right, let me see, where's my, I'll entertain a motion here if we want to transfer. I think it's written. To approve to release the $20,000 from our FAA reserve account to cover any emergency costs for the fire department. Does anybody want to make a motion for that?
I make a motion that we vote to approve the release of $20,000 from the FAA reserve to cover the cost of the emergency repairs as specified.
Okay. Very good. Is that good, Michelle? All right, is there a second to that at all?
A second.
Okay, we'll get a second. Any discussion? All right,
How much money is in our reserve account?
25,000 right now.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, all opposed? None? All right, Chief.
Thank you.
You're all set. Thank you.
All right, next we're going to open the public hearing for October 24th, 2022 special town meeting warrant at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m.
All right, everybody has the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, the first item that I'd like the FAA and the Board of Selectmen to acknowledge is that the zoning articles that at the time of this agenda began at 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 actually began at 12. So I'm going to just read Article 12, Article 13, Article 14, Article 15, and
Starting at 12, you said?
12 to 16, Mr. Chairman.
12 to 16.
For your awareness, the planning board will be taking those articles up, they're planning board sponsored articles. They'll be having a public hearing pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 5 on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. So I would ask that the FA and Board of Selectmen not take those articles up tonight and spend any time on them, because they haven't received a public hearing, and it's sponsored by the planning board, who will make a recommendation at town meeting.
Okay.
Item B, Mr. Chairman, what we've done in the past is gone over the financial articles. Mr. Mayor, I would generally call out the financial articles that I've arranged on the warrant beginning at 1. Make sure that they're still in the correct order, 1 through 10, I believe. One through 9, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Johnson. 1 through 9. And also 21 and 22 all require FAA recommendation to town meeting. So if we could go over those, if we could start by calling those out, and someone from either board calling out whether they want to hold on those articles and review them thoroughly or continue forward. For example, Article 1 is Board of Selectmen town reports. It's a routine matter. It really doesn't require much debate, but of course, that's the purview of either board to call it out and put a hold on it. The same would be Article 2 on this warrant, to hear and act on the recommendations of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Appropriation and Advisory Committee, or take any other action relative thereto, relatively routine. We may not necessarily have to debate it, but if there's any member of either board here tonight or a member of the public for the public hearing that would want to have us hold on that, we can go ahead and do so.
So, Mr. Chairman, did we open up the public hearing, joint public hearing for this already? This has already been opened up, so we're still in the joint public hearing, okay. As far as Articles 1 through, what do we got, 1 through 9?
1 through 9.
No objection if we go through each article. Do you have any objection to that, or take them one at a time?
Any objections?
Before we start going through that, I just wanted to ask legal, our legal counsel, Jeff, are you in a hurry? Are you here for the night, or?
I am.
You are, okay, all right. If not, I would have had you, go to article.
No, I'm here for questions that the board may have.
All right, great. Okay, so I guess we'll take up Article 1 and 2 are routine articles. Does anybody from FAA have any comments on these 2 articles?
No.
I mean, the routine articles, if we want to take a vote and get them out of the way, entertain a motion on Article 1 and Article 2.
Make a motion to accept Article 1 as written.
So I would just say that let's see if there's any discussion first, Mr. Mayor, and then when we close the public hearing, we'll
You want to vote out, you want to take a
We'll
vote?
just do
on
all discussion, all the
Okay, all right,
items.
so I guess we'll just do open discussion then.
Yeah.
So Article 1 and 2, no open discussion. How about Article 3? Anybody have any questions for administrator on this one? Do we have an amount for this? 250? Oh, 975? Let's pay it together. What happened on this, Jonathan?
This is a stipend.
This is the
that's
stipend?
paid in the, I believe that was not submitted prior to the end of it was an oversight prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
That's fine.
Does anybody have any questions on this article?
No.
Everybody good? Board of Selectmen, everybody good? Okay. Article 4, this is a ratification of the town vote. This is the fire truck that was voted on for $775,000 at the town meeting and approved. It fell outside, was it 90-day term on this?
That's right, Mr. Chairman, there's a 90-day turnaround to get it onto a ballot. We didn't make that 90-day cutoff. But it was approved by a 2/3 majority, 79% voted in favor of sending this to the ballot in November. So this was submitted by the treasurer to Lock and Lord. They actually came up with the verbiage for the article for the town meeting to vote on. It's basically ratifying the action that was taken in May.
Rich? Question
I was
on
going to
this?
say, I have two of the most exciting pages you'll read tonight. If there's questions on it, I don't think it had been distributed, but this is from Lord.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on anything about this? So just putting the same article back up because of the 90-day rule there. Okay. Anybody from the Board of Selectmen have any questions on this? Rich, this doesn't affect interest rates, because I know what, on this borrowing, what's...
I guess the primary thing is to make sure that we get to where we're going. It's a commentary on what the rate's going to be. You know, the rates have been great for years, and now interest rates are rising, so a delay probably will have.
You don't
some
see anything
effect.
on the horizon, like a 2% increase coming at you?
Were that
Or an
good, I wouldn't
announcement,
be.
announcement that there was an increase or anything? Costs, all right.
Nothing was unexpected. Nothing came from the lending side that said, you know, we want to do this before year end or anything
Okay,
like that.
all right, thank you. Anything? Okay. All right, Article 5 is the cyclical inspections for $21,000. It's the 10-year inspection. Jonathan, do you have any comments on this?
This was on the warrant in the spring. We asked the town meeting to put this over to the fall, and my recommended source of funding is for $21,400 would be from free cash. And this is not an unusual request. This happens every 10 years. It's a more thorough assessment of all the properties in town.
Does anybody have any questions on this? This seems, John, you sure this is just 5 years?
This is 10 years on here.
Says 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, but we do it every 5 years, not every 10, correct?
This is specifically cyclical inspections of all properties in town that have not been inspected in the past 10 years, beginning in FY '23.
What is this to our triennial? We have a triennial inspection or adjustment. What is, isn't this the triennial?
Is it triennial?
This one is, I believe,
thought it was every 3 years.
inspections for the interior of the properties as well.
These are specific,
If put in a new
like knock
bathroom
on the
or
door,
something like that.
can we come in?
You can actually check going inside
Yeah, so this is a reoccurring.
every 10 times.
It's different than what's done on an annual basis. This is where
I'm just wondering which one.
we hire assessor professionals to come in and actually knock on doors and
Okay.
try to gain access to the property to see if any improvements have been made.
So it's 107,000 just on the 5 years. So we're gonna do it over 5. What is her? Doesn't she have another one?
It's a one-time, Mr. Chair.
What's the difference between this and the 5-year evaluation? Maybe.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take that. the five, it used to be triennial, it used to be every 3 years. The Municipal Modernization Act changes to every 5 years. That's a reval.
Right.
Just going through and they're looking, they revalue all the properties. They don't necessarily go in and re-inspect every 3 years. This is from what I can understand.
This is the inspection.
This is every 10 years they go in and inspect to make sure that their cards are accurate. I will say that they probably are doing limited inspections to update their cards during the 5-year revals. But this is for
Is this
probably a much.
Do you know if this kind of evaluation, does this cover for the try?
Yeah, it's 5 years now. It's no longer trolley. It's 5 years. Yeah.
All right, so we're getting rid of that.
No.
Not getting rid of it, but
We're keeping that, but it will. This will go through. They'll do their inspections, then they'll get their data, and then every 5 years they'll go in and
do it again
and tweak the data. They do it through what is known as a computer-aided mass appraisal system. They have their algorithms, tables. Each one's a little different, and they'll look and they'll see what the sales are throughout the town with certain factors, view factors, good, poor, excellent, those type of analysis. They do that every 5 years.
Okay.
This is to actually go in and confirm what they have.
Okay.
Good question. So on the second year, are both of them done? The one that's every 5 years, and then, so the second year, the 10-year one is done as well? Or does it replace that 5th year one every 5 years?
One is an inspection, from what I understand. And the other is a reval. They're different. Right? One of them is actually going through and inspecting. One of them is revaluing by going through and updating all their charts, all their tables, and coming up with different values, probably different values, either depending upon the market, either going up or going down. Now, a lot of municipalities do it every year. The requirement's every 5 years now, instead of it used to be every 3.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so my question is, so this is good, this free cash, this $21,000 request is gonna be good for 1 year, or it's gonna be good
For
for
five.
5 years? Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, I don't know if anybody else got the email from Lisa today. There's also another one that's not appearing that I don't see here, and I don't know if it's part of this or not, but it's a request for $12,000 a year, $60,000. Does anybody know?
Mr. Chairman, I believe we approved that in the spring. There was one we.
Been approved, it wasn't passed over?
No, one we approved and one we passed over. This is the one we passed over that we could.
So that one's all set.
Yes.
Is that also from free cash, that 12, do you remember that? It wouldn't have
That
been.
seems like, it's paid for. I think it was from the free cash we had certified back then, going into this year, that was available that we applied to the FY '23 budget.
'Cause that looks like it's gonna be a warrant article every year, that 12.
There's generally a warrant article for
Are
the
we
inspections.
potentially gonna maybe run that into our budget?
Sure could.
Instead
we
of having
wouldn't
it
have to
pop
do
up
that.
and. Okay,
I'm sold.
you're sold, all right.
In our next budget.
All right. So 12 grand in her budget. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Anyone? No? All right, so then we'll move on to Article 6, the Recreational Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm actually looking for direction from the Board of Selectmen and the FAA on this article. I can say that we've begun fundraising and we've made some pretty strong headway, and we're getting after it. We're not there yet. I certainly would like input from both committees to see if they want to pass it over or take any other action.
Anybody have any questions for John on this?
how long would it take for them to, if this was to pass, how long will it take for them to complete the construction for us to be back to normal?
That's a good question, which I've never asked before. Do you have any idea, Michelle? I've never asked that question, but I can certainly find out.
So, obviously, $380,000 would have to come from free cash or fundraising. Where are we on the fundraising?
We're more in the less than $100,000 range.
So, if this was approved, where
However, we
would
could
you, where would
work-
you propose the other 280, if not more?
Well, I think we could work strategically with the treasurer. Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Sit in the back and my ears get hot. We can borrow 300 and... Ted's not even gone 24 hours and the place is falling apart, huh? You got 380, you can borrow it for 15 years, and then it's a matter of paying for it. If you had money in the bank, you wouldn't need to borrow it. If you had the authorization, you could start the project when the board was satisfied you had enough money for year one, year two, whatever scenario came up. But if you had the authorization, I wouldn't go borrowing the money in a month, 6 weeks. It would be a joint effort. So if you wanted to go through and get your authorization on there, it wouldn't be an issue at all, and then you could get all of your questions answered moving forward. What did you want to have in hand? Was there a pledge? Is there trust money for this? At what point is the town going to be asked to kick in a percentage? Mr. Matt?
Mr. Treasurer, what do you recommend?
If you have the article on here, get it approved, and then it'll be a matter of organizing with the Recreation Committee. We're not going to do this work overnight. There's going to be a bid process, correct? There's a whole bunch of triggers that are going to happen, so you have some leeway. We don't even know the turnaround time. It could be, I want to say, could be 6 months or a year. Who knows what's in stock? You can't get a police cruiser in 24 hours like you used to.
Mr. Chairman. We have a member of the Recreation Committee. Any chance you could, does the Recreation Committee have a recommendation in this regard?
As far as the funding,
As far as, are we gonna put this article on the warrant or not? I think that's the discussion.
yes, we would like that. The commission would like that very much and think it would benefit the town.
So if I understand it correctly, Mr. Chairman, it would be a $380,000 question, or, I mean, we figured at the time that would be the maximum amount. We would obviously go out to competitive bid, and we look for ways to cut that down without compromising, restoring the playground to its original benefit to the community. But, so it would be an ongoing fundraising effort in order to pay the note. Is that the road that you're suggesting, 25 grand-ish a year over 15 years?
Or if you'd like to do it. I mean, at one point, there's going to be more fundraising. I mean, if you're asking a little easier to have the money in the bank or have a steady stream of money in the bank, you don't want to hit year 6 and all of a sudden, hi, we're going to lay off 2 people so we can make the annual debt service on it. I think from a fundraising perspective, not Rich Carmignani, treasurer collector, but Rich Carmignani, parent, if you're asking me for my donation and you can hold up an approval saying, you know, we're looking for some seed money to start this, we have all the approvals necessary. What is your contribution going to be this evening? That's what I would do. I don't think it's a bad thing to approve it. It's a wrench kit. You have a tool to go through and get a project done. You could have a benefactor come through with $250,000, who knows? But you would have everything in place regardless of the scenario, if I could be succinct.
Jay?
So we have the Recreation Committee that wants it on the warrant. We have a recommendation by the treasurer, put it on the warrant.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments or questions on it?
I have a question. So I think a lot of people will say, wow, it's $380,000, that's kind of a house. I don't know what this winter's bringing, things like that. Could it ever be, and I know it costs a lot of money to make everything, ADA and, make everything do what you gotta do. Could it be suggested that the amount approved be like a halfway thing, so that then the other half could be fundraising and donations and corporations? Like, could there be a split or something over the 380 as far as the number?
Well, I think if you're going, and I understand what Ann's suggestion is, but I think if you're borrowing the money, you've already got commitment to pay for half of it. I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, if you're already fundraising that amount.
Okay.
And paying the note off. I mean, borrow the full amount, right?
I mean, certainly an update would sell the question, there's X amount committed with Y amount in hand.
So I think even with the betterments, when we talk about the road betterments and so forth, if you're gonna ask the town meeting to approve something like this and borrow the money for it, you gotta make sure it's enough money, because if you go halfway with it, you'll never, what do you do then when you don't have enough to do the project?
Right.
You borrow the money, it's sitting there, it's not enough to do it, you can't get enough with fundraiser, everything's dead in the water. And now the treasurer has to start paying on a note that we don't have enough money to even get the project completed with. So I think maybe we should borrow what we think is gonna be the correct amount and adjust down, rather than to try to scramble to find enough to complete the project or do it halfway.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I just wanted to ask Attorney Blake. I don't think this project would be put out to bid to do the work, and I don't think you could possibly do that without having the funding in place first, correct?
You typically need the funding in place to do it first. Just so that you know, if you're authorized, this would authorize you to borrow $380,000. If you got authorized to borrow $380,000 and you had a $250,000 benefactor come in, you don't have to borrow it. You can borrow whatever.
It's the up to, John?
Well, it's in your, we would say you get authorization to borrow the whole amount, but you don't have to borrow the whole amount if you've got donations coming in. So when it comes time to do the project and you're getting ready to do it, and somebody comes in and puts $250,000 on the table, you say, okay, we're only gonna have to borrow, 100-something thousand from there.
Any other comments? I guess my only comment is the optics of it at the town meeting. You're spending $380,000 for a playground, like Ann said. There's gonna be people say, yeah, that's a house. You're building a house. So, the optics of it, we've got things, we're buying a fire truck that's going on the thing. We're gonna probably have some sort of override coming up soon. The optics, if we were closer to, say, $200,000 in money that we raised already, we're that close, then I would feel more comfortable, and we can get up and say, hey, we got $200,000 here, let's get the rest of the money, we should be able to raise the rest of the money. But putting 380 on there for a playground when we're starting to ask for lots of other stuff maybe jumping the gun, maybe we wait another 6 months.
Mr. Chair, maybe we shouldn't be asking for some of the other stuff. I know the school came in, or I don't know if it was the school or private, for the football field. Is that private or was it the school?
For the, at the time the football field was replaced, that was, the school came in.
The school came in, they asked for 2 million, 1 million had been fundraised or committed.
And then it didn't come in.
It didn't come in?
Well, not all of it.
So, wow. You know, and that only, you know, it's a certain portion of the people in town. So what are we doing for the kids that are under 10? At some point, we gotta figure out how to clean up that eyesore before someone hops the fence and hurts himself.
Carrie?
You know, though, this is a town meeting, this is where residents get their voice to decide what kind of community they want. And if they want to spend that for the playground,
Absolutely.
do it. And if they say
Financially,
no,
I don't have any,
then we don't.
I don't have any disagreement financially. He can borrow the money. We've got some money raised. That's not an issue with me. I'm just wondering if the optics would just, you know, I hate to have people there saying you're spending $380,000 on a swing set.
But we're
It
not
doesn't
spending.
matter because the voters are gonna
No,
win.
well, that's why I hate to get it defeated, because we want it, you know, and that's what.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say what Carrie said, you know, that's, usually our, you know, motto is let people decide. You know, people have been asking for this for a while, I get it, and you are gonna have people who say, there's $380,000, there's no doubt about it. But, you know, let the discussion happen. That's my.
Here's my other question then. What happens if it got defeated on the floor? What do we do with the money raised in all the?
Gets defeated, Jeff? Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's an interesting question. You know, if you're no longer gonna use the money that was raised for the purpose for which it was donated, you'll have to give it back.
Right. So.
Unless the people are willing to change the purpose.
But through the chair, a defeat wouldn't necessarily mean that you're not gonna continue to fundraise for the playground.
That is
Right.
correct. That is correct. But if you don't use the monies for the playground, you can't just use them for something else.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine or envision a scenario, either chairman, where we just say never mind and we let the thing go to seed.
No, but through you guys, what happens if it is defeated? We can't put it back on until the next town meeting, or is it a year?
Unless, I think it's the Board of Selectmen declares it's an emergency. Then you could.
Okay.
It's the emergency preamble that you see on all bills. that
I'm
come
just
out.
wondering, since we can't use, since we're probably not gonna use free cash to fund the balance of this, and we're that far away, we're just telling people we're gonna go get a loan to do this. Now, that's fine with me, however, if they decide they wanna defeat it, and we do get a benefactor, and then this has gotta come up, when can we bring this up?
That's what I was asking.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is if there is a mechanism by which the Board of Selectmen can declare that it can go forward through emergency declaration or something to that effect, so the board does have the ability to move this article outside of the, I think it's or is it a 2-year or 1-year program?
I think it's more.
And I suppose if you smell it coming down, you just move to pass over for, I think, more information.
Right,
further
and then you can
study.
bring this up when we have more money, go closer in the spring. I mean, nobody's gonna do any work right now anyway on this playground, right? It was passed now.
Mr. Mayor? I had two questions being, I came up here, it was my understanding this was gonna be a parent loan. The idea that $380,000 on this date, we're gonna be able to start writing checks and pay vendors. The back half of it was going to be the fundraising, paying the loan back. So rather than waiting for $20 to come in each time and do a little piece, had the ability to go through and do this all at once. The repayment would be from the benefactors, and you'd be able to go through during next year's budget process and say, here it is, we borrowed $380,000, our first payment is, we have years 1 through 6 already paid with, part of 7. I think what Ann had said was are you overpaying for it? And the way I see it, if it falls under 30B, that's the separate process that goes through and says, we're going through and paying for this equipment with the best price according to Mass General Law. But I always took this as just being the parent article so that this could be done in a 6 or 8 week period whenever everything, all those pieces came together. Not necessarily the, why are you spending so much, but this is how we would get it done. If anything, it would be advertised as a minimal cost to the average taxpayer.
Actually, it makes sense if you want to go forward. I don't have a problem with it. I just worry about at the town meeting, nobody gets up and opposes anything. Says nay, they push clickers, right? And you get a $380,000 playground when you've got a fire truck on as a debt exclusion. You just had a debt exclusion for the schools. You got something else coming. I don't know. I hate to have it defeated when these people are raising money where we can bring it back up in the spring. That's just, but that's just my feeling.
I think a strategy had been offered in the event there is poor press, or for some reason you put your nose to the wind and this is not going well, we'd pass over and avoid the defeat.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, we have, the Recreation Committee, we have a new social media person who can get the word out. That might bring more people into the town meeting, again, to decide whether this is something they want to have, right? I totally understand the financial.
Yeah, I just don't want it to get
economy's
defeated.
It's kind of
That's
teetering
the
right
only thing.
now,
I
if
don't want it
anybody
to get.
hasn't noticed. So,
I know the Women's Club has done a lot of work and trying to raise some money and stuff. I hate for an article to get defeated after they've done all this work, and we can't bring this article up unless it's an emergency. I don't know how you're gonna use a playground as an emergency. I mean, so I hate to get it defeated if we're not close enough to paying, for it. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not opposing
It's
it.
unsafe, that's how we get it back up.
Okay.
It's unsafe, that's an emergency. It's unsafe, it's not ADA compliant.
Okay, whatever legal terminology you want to use. All right. Does anybody have any other questions about this? Like I say, I'm not opposed to it. So. Article 7 is carpet. So the library director has already put this carpet through capital improvement, and it was approved through capital improvement. I'd like to replace it. It was passed over. She was here at capital improvement, still requesting the. Jonathan, where are we on free cash? Do you have a number yet?
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is to pass this over unless it's paid for through the endowment. I've asked the question. I haven't gotten an answer yet as to whether or not we qualify. But based on what we have coming up, my recommendation is not to move forward on this at this particular time.
You did ask for the endowment paperwork from her?
And she did provide the endowment paperwork, but it also provided for a request from the trustees to the endowment to spend the money, and I sent an email to that effect. I haven't received a response to it yet.
Okay.
So, in the absence of another source of funding, I would recommend not hitting free cash, and you'll understand why shortly, but passing this over.
So administrator's recommendation is to pass this over. Anybody would have any questions on this?
I think it's good to pass it over until we get more paperwork.
And I definitely would like to see the language in the endowment so that we can see what potentially can be applied from the endowment to a budget. I don't know if that's even possible.
I don't think so. I think that the librarian had said at the previous meeting that none of that money from the endowment can be used for this.
But any budgetary item at all? None?
It seemed like there might have been a proviso in there that allowed the trustees to make a specific request of the endowment, but I haven't even given the endowment paperwork to Jeff to look at. But I mean, in the absence of, what I can say for certain is I'm not recommending we use free cash for this.
Yeah, I agreed. I mean, the same standard we apply to every other department would be to try to find other sources, Mr. Chairman, so I think that's fair. We wait for that.
Anybody have any other questions on this? Okay, Article 8 is the salary increases to the town clerk and to the treasurer's office, totaling a total of $5,510.14. It would be, treasurer would be $2665.53, and the town clerk would be $2844.61. These are normal raises
Which is around 2.5.
that we normally get. Rich, do you want to speak to yours?
Um, 2.75% is what it
That was
is.
gonna be my question, Rich.
For yours, Rich?
Yeah.
2.7. Okay.
What's the other one? Does anybody
Do we know what the other one is?
Yeah.
It's my understanding it was 4%.
How much?
4%.
4.
Rich, what is your historical yearly increase?
2.5 to 3%.
About 3%?
Between 2.5 and 3%.
So that's within the range.
Yeah.
What about in the town clerk's office? About the same, or?
I think there's an additional percent and a half to get her back to a 2019 level. I thought there was,
That sounds accurate to me, Mr. Chairman.
Chairs, is this also in line with like the market study that we did with all our roles?
For the town clerk specifically, yes, it is.
Okay, and that one, and Red Town Clerk.
And Rich's,
Okay,
yeah.
good, all right. That's why I want to make sure we're consistent, elected and not.
For elected officials, Mr. Chairman, it requires the
Right.
town meeting vote. It's not something that we do where the town meeting authorizes me a merit pool, and then we work and evaluate full-time employees.
But it fits on that chart, like with everybody else, regardless of how it gets funded, right?
Correct.
Good, thanks.
And you said the 4% is to bring them up from 19?
more of a correction to get how to describe the chart, entry-level market rate, and then sort of beyond the market rate. She was, or the town clerk was, sort of closer to the entry side than to the midpoint. So I think that's why an additional percent and a half was factored in there.
Who what? And I appreciate both boards putting up with my actual notes on the warrant.
Oh, okay. Or mine.
We were right down to the wire, so I didn't have
Yeah.
a chance to.
That's all right.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Rich? Anybody? Questions for Rich at all? Okay. All right, thank you, Rich. All right, my favorite article, Article 9, deposit into stabilization. What do you, I guess you got your numbers here, John?
Mr. Chairman, as of today, our auditors gave us a conservative estimate of $600,000 to be certified in free cash. That's the conservative side of it.
Yep.
So my recommendation is, we currently have a balance of $108,443.31 in stabilization and $126,673.90 in capital improvement stabilization. My recommendation to both boards is to deposit $491,556, I can't remember, 69 into stabilization, which will bring us up, and also to $23,326.10 into capital improvement stabilization, and that will give us overall between both accounts $750,000 into stabilization, and it will leave us a minimum free cash balance of $58,207, which if we're certified above 600, will be slightly larger than that in free cash. So that's my recommendation for those two deposits.
So 491 in our stable.
491 in stable, and 23,326 in capital improvement stable.
So you want to put us to 600,000 in stable and 150 in capital stable, basically. Balance those off.
Correct. And so as we auction off our older vehicles and that sort of thing, you'll notice that there's an odd balance on our capital improvement stabilization of 126,673.90. And so that money, the town meeting authorized for us to deposit into capital improvement stabilization, which we've been doing. That will get us at least to 750. If you remember, our goal was $1 million.
Yeah.
We did a separate $280,000 article in the spring to help offset the school assessments. So we're not that far off pace.
So, John, maybe you can kind of explain so we funded ARPA budget, right? 1.16, right?
1.16.
1,160,000 for ARPA. We're looking at 600,000 now.
Was infused into
Reserve.
FY
So
'20.
other than the school, the 280, what else have you had to use?
So we didn't budget for about 100, and Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're around 140,000 in the cap landfill regulatory and compliance issues.
40?
We've had a couple of unbudgeted costs for public safety equipment that broke down over the course of the last year which was pretty, it's probably almost 50 grand worth of repairs that we needed to infuse out of ARPA.
Okay. So far we used up $500,000 of that. So that's it seems about right. 600.
We're being as judicious as we can with it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on?
Just make a comment that it's good to see we're focused on putting money back in stabilization. It's always been a goal of mine and ours.
We have to. We got to get that up to $1 million.
$1 million.
We
so
have to get that to $1 million.
Yep.
Not even way below where
Tough
it should
times
be.
coming ahead maybe, so it's good to do that.
So that leaves us approximately 60 and free. Are you saying at 58? These numbers you're taking out for the Article 5 and Article 8 leaves us to 58?
That's right, Mr. Chairman, 21 floors for Article 5. The 5,510 is for the article we just talked about, Article 8.
It still then leaves us 58. It doesn't leave us much cash, but.
Doesn't leave us much cash. But we also have the county share of ARPA coming.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
That 600,000, I'm told as of this morning, is on the conservative side. It's not gonna be a lot more, but it'll be a little bit more maybe.
Okay. I guess that's Article 10. Anybody have any more questions on Article 9? All right, we'll go into Article 10. Jonathan, if you wanna kind of go into this, this was already passed on capital improvement.
That's right, both Article 10 and 11, Mr. Chairman, are, 10 is the Tobin Farms betterment, and Misty Meadows is Article 11. They've both gone through capital improvement. We've met multiple times with representatives from both neighborhoods. These are the numbers that our town engineer and our highway superintendent and our planning board were able to assemble for us for both neighborhoods. The source of funding is the actual additional assessment on the residents of their roads, their real estate bills, until the notes are paid off for both. And of course, if we go out to competitive bid and the amounts are less than that, or if we complete the project for less than that, both amounts will go down.
Hey, Rich? What is the, when you do this assessment, what is the time frame for the assessment? What do you borrow this out at?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, obviously the assessment's it's gonna be a special assessment added to the real estate bill.
Correct.
For those residents of that area. What is your time frame? How do you, we gotta borrow the money and then you assess them?
Complete, right.
15 year, or is that how you assess it out of 15 years, or
I think the statute says 20.
20?
I thought it was 20, and it would parallel the sewer betterment plan that we had, where at one point they started the clock, they completed your road, you have the opportunity to pay the betterment in advance or agree to be part of the repayment process, and it goes on the third quarter tax bill. So however that works out,
So
technically.
this sits on the real estate tax bill for 20 years, basically?
Yeah, well, the way it works is the property owner, the Board of Selectmen would vote to an order of betterment. You would assess it to everybody. They would have the ability to either pay it all up front or go on their tax bill for 20 years. I don't know what the rate would be.
Well, they would have to all come with it up front, right? It's not one person.
No,
Say,
one person.
One person can
If
pay
I owe,
off his
if
real
I owe
estate?
10 grand and rather than doing it out over 20 years, I say, you know what, I'm just gonna do it and I'll save myself a bunch of interest. Here's 10 grand, so, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And then you have betterments paid in advance, and there's sort of a, you're holding on to that.
Okay.
But it's, you're right, everybody would own their apportioned piece. Technically, it's
But
part of,
obviously, this stays with the title of the house if it transfers to somebody new, right?
technically, you could sell it with the encumbrance, but why would you get anybody, why would you take somebody else's loan? I can't imagine a lender doing anything like that. So you figure if everyone moves in every 7.5 years, these probably don't all go to the end.
Any questions?
Do you know offhand how many houses are in each neighborhood to divide? Like, what about roughly they pay?
I think Jeff would probably know a little better.
I'm sorry,
About how many houses are in each neighborhood that would have to divide up the cost?
there's 10 in one neighborhood and 40 in another.
Only 10 in one? It's gonna be a big one.
Was it Misty Meadow has,
All the expenses would be borne by the residents.
Yeah.
And it goes on in the form of the municipal lien.
all right. And what other articles we got? 21. Anybody have any more questions on either one of these? Okay. So then we'll jump to Article 21.
22? 22, Mike?
22 or 21? What do we got?
21's for Board of Selectmen.
Selectmen.
How was that?
17 is right here.
22, 23.
'22 and '23, Mr. Chairman.
If there's no objection, I'd like to kind of take these out of order. I'd like to go to Article 23 first. Just to get that out of the way. Any objection to that? Okay. Article 23 is a purchase of a new dump truck in the amount of $250,000 with a transfer from water retained earnings to pay for the dump truck. This was a request from the Water and Sewer Department for fiscal year 2026. Superintendent wanted to advance this to this year, just because the old truck is kind of garbage, right? So want to advance it this year. And he had bids on this. And do you want to speak to any of this, George, or?
Yeah, this replaces a 2003 dump truck that's just about broken apart. We haul a lot of heavy material when we do water main breaks, big rock and heavy wet slop. And we had to move this into the 2023 range just so we can get this going and replaced. So we'll be probably seeking this truck we have now out for probably a bidded type of sale. It's good for like a landscaper or somebody to use. And we found out that this truck is comparable to the same model as the highway's getting to, so we're kind of keeping in scheme with them. We're getting a Western Star type truck with the type of engine that we think is going to last us for a good long time. So we're hoping that we can get this approved.
Thank you, George. Does anybody have any questions about the truck? No? Okay. And then we'll go to Article 22. This is the Water and Sewer Commissioners requesting $200,000 to begin an inventory of all the lead and copper service lines. You want to speak to this? Or?
You want me to call Joe Clark?
Yeah, if you could.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I just gotta
So,
dial somebody into the meeting here.
We're just gonna get Jeff on the phone too with this.
Jeff, it's John Rudy. You're on the speakerphone here at the meeting, the live meeting.
Okay,
How you doing?
good.
Good. Okay.
I'll have Scott.
Hi, Jeff. I'm also here. Scott Sikowski.
Thank you.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. So, I don't know if anybody remembers back when Flint, Michigan had all their issues with bad water, and it was blamed on the municipalities and the governments not doing what they needed to do. This comes out of that. Basically, the town has been told, municipalities have been told in Massachusetts that they have until October of 2024 to survey their systems and determine if there's lead in their, whether it be lead incorporations, lead solder, lead pipe, in their water system. That's from basically from our pump station all the way to your faucet. And then from there it'll be determined what needs to be done to mitigate that, to remove the lead. So in that, Ty and Bond has proposed to us to do that survey for us for a cost of approximately $200,000. And in that, as part of the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, where we've been getting a ton of favorable loans for our PFAS issues, they are offering a 100% forgiveness. So we have to put the money up front, pay for it, and then they will reimburse us afterwards 100%. So we're going to take the $200,000 from retained earnings, correct? From retained earnings. I just want to be sure. Take it from retained earnings, pay for it, and then when the Clean Water Trust gives it back to us, we put it back. It's pretty simple. Jeff, I'm sure you've got far more on the technical side of things, but that's from the commissioner's side. It seems like a no-brainer at this point, where we can get 100%, basically a grant for 100%. We just have to forward fund it.
Mr. Chairman? You mean the 200,000?
200,000, what'd they say?
No, I just want to make sure it's not to abate and fix all the stuff that's in town if there's lead that they find.
No, this is to find it,
Does this
to find out if there is any and to determine that there isn't.
Does this commit us to fixing it as we find it?
Yeah, they're gonna come down and say that if there is lead, they're gonna come down and say it needs to be fixed. And that will be a determination of how that's gonna be paid for then.
Okay, so it's not, okay.
Because if it's in, say it's in my basement, they find lead pipe in my basement.
Right.
There isn't, I know that for sure. But if they find lead pipe in my basement, they're gonna say that it needs to be removed or replaced.
Get that, but
Now we determine how that's gonna get paid for.
cost and stuff, we determine it for another separate project, right?
For repair and removal, yes.
Okay.
But we're looking, at this point, we're looking for like lead corporations where the municipal water comes into your home water, ties in at the shutoff, make sure there's not lead there. Make sure there's not lead, in those places. That's where they're gonna be looking primarily, but they'll be surveying into houses as well.
And it's only people who are on town water, right?
That's correct.
And businesses?
Yes, if they're on town water.
Schools.
If-
Scott, a quick question. So this is another one of those things that kind of comes to us in the nth hour, right? We're just finding out about this last week.
We've been working the lead
So
copper.
my question is in the language, where did you understand that you had to do this? Where did that language come from?
DEP.
So the DEP called you and told you you had to do this?
They're
or
the
else?
regulations, we get the regulations, we read them, and
So Massachusetts is requiring this now? Or is this an EPA?
as of October 2024, this survey must be done.
It must be done.
Yes.
Okay.
Survey.
Because the
Survey.
The
The survey
language,
must be
the
done.
language, in trying to figure this out, the language I've seen, and I'm gonna defer to our counsel for this, the language I see from the EPA is not, this is, you have to do this. These are revisions to a law that are on the books. These are revisions. This hasn't been passed, hasn't gone through anything, so.
Okay, so you're talking about EPA, that's federal.
Yeah.
I can tell you, not to get stuck in the weeds, but with PFAS, the federal level is 70 parts per trillion.
Right.
Massachusetts has adopted 20.
I agree.
So we deal with 20.
Right.
What EPA says at that point doesn't matter because DEP is gone.
So you're
Is
saying the
strict.
Mass DEP has now changed the rules to their letting?
No, they came up with a lead and copper a program, and they want us, that they're telling us, this is what you need to do by October 2024.
Okay.
They're giving us time. We found out about the revolving fund 100%.
Yeah, I mean, as far as-
Forgiveness, we found out about this
As far as
just a
paying
couple
for it,
months
we
ago.
can get that a little after. I'm just trying to figure out, we're all sitting here with an idea of we gotta spend $200,000, and when we spend the 200,000, the findings that we find in this 200, that could put us in a very large loan. So I'd like to slow it down a little bit so we can find a little bit more. This is the second time you've come to FAA and said, this got to be done yesterday. So I just want to know, I really want to know,
Okay.
for my research,
So it
does
doesn't.
this have to be done now? And I'm going to defer to counsel on this.
It doesn't have to be done now, as we understand it, but what happens, it doesn't have to be done now. It has to be done before October 2024. If we don't do it now, we risk, and we probably give up, the chance to get the 100%
Well, that's
in
the
principle
second, that'd be my
forgiveness.
second question. Is this-
That's why it needs to be done now, because we've got this opportunity to get a grant to pay for it.
Maybe.
He is correct. It will ultimately have to be done by October of 2024.
Right.
What I know as a municipal attorney for the last 20 years who does this kind of work, I know that you're taking the position, and DEP very well may take the position, that we need to go in people's houses and review what they have. Our municipal system is not my lateral line. And I don't know, EPA cannot give us the authority to enter into people's houses.
No, that people have to grant us permission to go into the house.
You know, so
That's
I
correct.
don't know that the interpretation that, I mean, our municipal system is not defined as the lateral line up to my kitchen
But
faucet.
we have certain ratepayers, certain users that allow our men to go into their homes once a month or periodically and take samples from their faucet in order to have it sent out to the lab for testing. Testing for lead and copper, for whatever they're testing at the time. So we have customers that have allowed us to go into their home to take water from the kitchen spigot.
I guess my point is,
You want me to add a few?
yeah.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So again, this is Jeff Faulkner from Ty and Bond, been working with the water department for 5 or 6 years. The town has been, since under 1991, been under the lead and copper rule promulgated by the Environmental Protection Agency, as is every other public water supply in the country. To that end, they have a lead and copper sampling plan, and they have to have residents, a select number of residents, take lead and copper samples on a routine basis. In 2021, EPA promulgated a revision to that law, so it's basically a replacement of that law with some additional requirements. That requirement is to do an inventory of the service line, both on what we traditionally call the street side of the property line, as well as from the property line to the water meter. So basically the front yard, in through the building wall, but then the water meter, which is owned by the water department, is usually right there. So if it's after the meter, the faucets themselves, plumbing and bathrooms, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, I was mistaken.
Including the water meter. So that is required that every service, you have to identify both street side and private side, and that the public water supplier is mandated by this regulation to inventory by October of 2024. In addition, at that same date, the water supplier has to develop a plan for replacing any lead services. That may not necessarily mean digging them up right away. It might mean if our future sampling exceeds the lead value that's required or allowed, that triggers a lead replacement plan.
Jeff, we don't have, this is Jeff Blake, the town council. The town doesn't have the authority to dig up somebody's front yard. So we
We're
can't.
not talking about the town digging up the front yard for replacement.
You're just talking about our
The
mains.
plan might be a requirement for private property owners to dig up their own yard. It might include an incentive program for private property owners to do that. But that's what the work will develop that plan.
Jeff, this is Mike Mayock from FAA. So
Hi, Mike.
my question is, when I read all of these proposed changes, and again, they're proposed, and I'll agree that they're more than likely.
They are law right now. They went into effect in December of 2021.
Do you have any information to show me that? Because I'm not seeing that. I've done a ton of research on this. I am not seeing that. These were proposed. I know they've been working on it since 2021. They wanted to do this,
No,
but
it was promulgated in December of 2021.
promulgated. Okay. Well, I'll take your word for it on that. But in the language that I read, that once you identify these lead lines, that it's the municipality or the water municipality that has to. It doesn't say anything about the homeowner fixing this. It says this is the responsibility to mitigate the lead content based for the town has to mitigate that.
Mike,
Good.
maybe town council can
Okay.
clear that up?
On October 24th, October of 2024, we will have to have a survey pursuant to these regulations. There will have to be a survey of the lead.
All right.
Now, what happens if we don't? I don't know.
I'm not advocating we don't. I actually advocate that we do this because you'd hate to have anybody drinking lead or anything. I'm just wondering why we got to do this today. You know,
What will happen if you decide not to do anything? What you would present to the EPA services, or the majority of your services, are unknown. And an unknown service in EPA's eyes is considered lead. So it's lead until proven otherwise. And you have to publicly make all of this available. So you would be putting out there that all of these unknowns are potentially lead.
Okay. Question.
And mind you, this is a plan, this is the process. However, at the end of spending the $200,000, it is not indicating that every one of your 2,600 services will be successfully identified. It's a program to help start you, and what is due in October of 2024 is what they're calling the initial survey. So this is something that you'll have to determine whether you need to continue or if you can live with what is developed on the initial survey.
John?
Jeff, it's John Marcy. How long will the survey, assuming we do this, how long will the survey take to do?
The expectation is that if you submit the application, that we would probably be able to start in roughly January 2023, and generally, run it through the October 2024 timeline. So that's like an 18, 19-month window, because that's the deadline of submitting something. You don't necessarily submit it ahead of time.
All right, and a follow-up. What do we do if, like, we don't get a lot of, say, if a portion of that 2,600 decides not to participate in the survey? We're automatically going to be considered lead, and I'm just looking ahead a little bit for the,
Yep.
you know what I'm asking.
The multi-pronged approach that we're suggesting and has been reviewed with the water department is to first do a data review, a desktop analysis of what information you have. Some assumptions can be made relative to the year built of the structure. If it was built after 1985, it would be considered lead-free. We would send out a customer survey and ask customers to fill out information of what they know about their service. And then from a field perspective, we would like to target doing basement inspections in ones that allow us in for a set number of days of basement time, as well as doing some test pitting on basically at the sidewalk location, so you get a little bit of a look onto the private side and a little bit of a look onto the street side with the test pit.
All right, thanks.
So those are the multi-pronged.
Right, I mean, put in those terms, I think a lot of people would opt in, just knowing that they probably have had, just to make sure they don't have any lead. I'm thinking of the what ifs, right, because people are thinking them. Jeff, what if they do find something and they don't want it to do, we don't want to do it? Do we have to shut off the water to that address.
Oh, for God's sakes.
I
Don't even put it out there.
No, I
No.
do. I'm gonna ask it. You
No,
know?
I know, but
Like Jeff, what?
Are you saying if we would like to get in the basement and they refuse?
No, he's saying if this is Jeff Blake from Town Council, he's saying if you find lead and they say, no, I don't want you to replace it.
I've had it for 100 years.
Well,
I don't touch
your
it.
your responsibility is to notify them. That would be your primary responsibility. You know, if you identify that it's lead, that you're notifying them that it is lead.
It's on private property.
Subsequent replacement plan, you would certainly control replacing the street size of that line. And then the plan that we would develop for you, will develop options for you for consideration for how you want to address the private side, whether that's an incentive program or, you know, a requirement on, you know, change of ownership that it has to happen, you know, stuff like that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
You see why I'm asking these questions, guys, right? Just because I can see where this could go.
So Jeff, this is,
We could do all this and then still be out, sorry, Mr. Chairman, still be out of compliance with DEP and everything. That's what I'm saying. I think we need to assess, of course, but I'm just,
so Jeff, could you speak to the SRF loan in this 100% loan forgiveness, and how does this work? And do you have any language you can send us on this?
The DEP has $20 million from EPA through some of the federal infrastructure stimulus monies to get this going. Whether they add future dollars to it is uncertain because the Massachusetts would be competing against 49 other states for that pool of money. So the $20 million is currently available within Massachusetts. You would be submitting an application to get some of that funding. For intensive purposes, it's a grant, but the legalities of the paperwork that needs to be developed between the state and the town is that it's considered a loan. And then at the successful end of the project, they would waive the full 100% of the principal. So it would be, giving you the value of the project back to pay off either yourselves or any short-term borrowing that you needed to do.
Do you have any language on this that you can send us for us to view, or?
I forwarded last Friday a set of links, and one of the attachments was the SRF financing application.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Jeff Blake, you're representing a lot of cities and towns. Are other towns voting this at their fall town?
I haven't seen any. but it's 2 years out. I'm sure that come springtown annual town meeting, I will start to see a lot of it. I haven't, in the 6 or 7 warrants I've reviewed, I haven't seen this, but they could maybe even pay it out of out of a revolving fund or an enterprise fund for the water sewer. I just don't know how they're proposing to do it.
Like the PFAS, it seems like we're right at the beginning. So, I mean, you get in there, you get the favorable loans, and the folks that come behind you have to fight for what's left. But we're in there ahead. We're getting in ahead at the beginning of the game, rather than having to fight with everyone else for the limited resources.
The city of Fall River and the town of Millis, I believe, are the two that I've heard have been awarded funds.
Mr. Chairman? So I guess I'll pose it to both Jeffs. And what's the risk we run if we don't act on this now, but gather further information, act on it in the spring? If apparently Millis and Fall River are the other two ahead of the curve and not the other 363.
I'm happy to, I mean, at least from what I understand, the risk is that the monies for the full forgiveness might not be there. I think that that's it, and, I can't speak for Ty and Bond, but if they can't, it sounds to me like they can do it in that amount of time, but, they are going to need some time to do the survey.
Yeah, primarily the main reason would be that $20 million is, might not be there anymore. If you wait till the Springtown meeting, the window is still a year to perform the work, which is still reasonable. Some of the work needs to occur when excavation can occur in the summer, so you don't want to pinch yourself too much, but a year is reasonable. If you waited beyond spring of next year, then it would get very, very tight.
I have a question, but it's probably more for council. So if somebody owns a home, an apartment or something like this and has the test and there comes out like I live in an old house, does that information become reported to the town like, oh, Ann Godrow has lead paint in her 1938 house, and what happens with people that are that own like landlord rental properties? Do they have to, is it almost kind of like that lead paint where if you rent to somebody?
This isn't paint.
Kicking it, the can
This
down
isn't
the
paint, this is water pipes.
Right, but I'm wondering about the whole kick the can down the road, like, so if once you know there's lead in your pipes in your home, are you obligated to repair that because you own rental property, or are you obligated to do?
It's likely a public record, and it's likely an insurance company would see that, and especially for a rental property that are renting out to kids,
Right.
There will be repercussions, and ultimately, I think that the folks will have to replace those pipes.
Right, I guess that's what I'm
As a-
kind of wondering, as people are thinking about voting for this, what that ends up looking like.
As of right now, there is no requirement.
Right.
As of right now, but this is how these are often done. The DEP and the EPA provide cities and towns with funds to do these surveys, and now they understand what we have. And the next step, probably 3, 4, 5 years down the road, is they'll start implementing regulations to address what is found. And I do know that there's, the Inflation Reduction Act, I believe there's a significant amount of money in there for water and sewer. And the Ferguson example has actually been cited in there. So I don't know if the federal government will end up picking up a large chunk of it for its municipalities. I don't know. But it's probably step one of
Right, that's, I guess, kind of what I'm just thinking, like, years ago, people didn't have to have Title V when they sold a house or what, like, but as, as the DEP becomes more involved, there's much more municipal reporting and government reporting and everything.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if there's any more ways we can hit this question. I don't know if you want to consider moving to another article. This discussion.
This is our final financial article, so.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
So I guess no.
I'm willing to move on.
With the discussion.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, the town council. So I'm reading Article 22 and its language. The last 3 lines in to determine whether or not, and it sort of boxed us into a Clean Water Trust loan, as opposed, or in contrast, Article 6 said, raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer. So in the event we don't get the full forgiveness, is this appropriate? I'm thinking worst case scenario, there's 101 municipalities who apply for this, the presumed $20 million, $200 million, whatever was allocated, pardon the pun, dries up, and you're not able to complete your water project. Would you want standard financing in anticipation of something because you needed to do it? My question has nothing to do with the merit. It has to do with,
Well, it's an enterprise account, Rich, so it would end up reverting back to retained earnings, right?
well,
They know by retained earnings already, so if we missed the deadline, we're going to be lost of that money, basically speaking.
but I thought we just had Jeff Faulkner say there's an application online to borrow the money. You may borrow the money in anticipation of reimbursement as well, as opposed to a standard SRF loan. So is it,
Rich?
yes,
SRF won't finance it like the SRF loans on a month-to-month basis.
right.
The town will have to pay the bills for the full project period.
It'd be like 2116 or whichever, the ones that we currently have.
No, it's nothing like the ones you currently have. You'll have to come up with the $200,000 on your own.
We have to front it and then it'll be reimbursed back to us. My question is then, is it loanable? You'd have to be able to borrow for engineering expenses for 5 years.
We'd either borrow it or take it from retained earnings.
If we take it from, Jeff, if we take it from retained earnings, are we allowed to get the reimbursement?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, yes. I don't think they don't care where you're getting the money to front it. They have to just do a loan paperwork process with you because they're not allowed to give a straightforward grant on this one.
To answer your question, through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, Rich, the language, the last sentence that you've identified of Article 22 doesn't obligate you to borrow it from anywhere. It says to determine whether you want to borrow it from somewhere. So it's the way this is is worded up here. We're going to transfer from retained earnings 200,000. I think what we should, at this point, we can tweak this language a little bit, and certainly through the motion, we will make it how we want to do it. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be contingent upon getting the reimbursement grant. If it is, we would have to say contingent upon qualifying for the reimbursement grant, or it would be you get up at town meeting and say, we're taking this from retained earnings, but this is what we're doing. We're applying for a reimbursement loan, which seems funny to say, but reimbursement grant, but we're not guaranteed to get it.
That's the intention of the Water Sewer Commission. That was the intention of the Water Sewer Commission at our previous meetings, that we're gonna spend retained earnings and, getting in at the basement level, apply for the reimbursement, and the reimbursement will replenish the retained earnings. The retained earnings are gonna be used extensively in the future to help pay for the plant.
Jeff, is that language right there? It says, shall be raised by borrowing with the potential?
No, it's not.
No.
The language is contradictory as we go down through, so I will have to tweak this language a little bit. And from what I understand, the language is going to be vote to transfer from retained earnings 200,000, and probably leave it at that and strike out that very last sentence. And then you would have to get up and explain to the people what your plan is for the reimbursement. Or, I don't know what the town wants to do. Do you want to make it contingent upon qualifying for reimbursement under, and we would get the proper loan?
Earlier in the agenda, we approved, or you approved, for the town administrator to sign that SRF application.
Yep.
For this.
Sure, but what I'm saying though is, if you go to town meeting,
yes,
they're gonna wanna know, okay, it's coming from retained earnings.
Right.
But you're gonna get up and you're gonna say, and the reason we're doing this right now, even though it's not due until October 24, is because we wanna get in on the ground floor, and we're gonna try to get a reimbursement loan.
right.
And, look, it makes sense. What I'm saying is, the town meeting may ask to have this funding contingent upon you qualifying for that loan, or not. And just, you would tell them that, look, we're gonna do the best we can.
If we didn't
but we gotta
qualify
do
for
it,
the
so
loan, then we still have to
we're
do the
still-
survey.
Yeah, we're still gonna foot the bill.
So
Yep.
it would be our hope that we get the money.
That's, Jeff, that would actually make me comfortable, because the urgency of doing this is contingent upon what Jeff is saying, that it's contingent upon this loan forgiveness program. Outside of that, why are we stuffing this through without more than one bid? We only have one bid on this, so.
Doing it for a fire truck.
I think the language should say contingent upon.
I can draft
Well,
that.
we have the funds and retained earnings to pay for it outright. We're doing it now because we have the opportunity to go to the clean water
Right, that's why I would put it as contingent on.
revolving account to get a principal forgiveness, so basically a
So
grant
once
for
the
the same amount.
application's accepted,
Sure,
then you're fine.
yep.
I mean, obviously, you're gonna have to transfer your retained earnings up front to pay for this.
Yep.
And if it's not accepted, you come back to Springtown meeting and ask for, because it's contingent upon.
Right.
If
So if it's not accepted, you come back to Springtown meeting and say, it wasn't accepted, I still need my 200,000 and I'm taking it from retained earnings.
But what we've done is we've delayed work on the survey by
Yep.
6 months, 8 months.
But the urgency now is to take advantage of a 100% reimbursement. The loan, this is, you said the requirement's not until
This is something
24?
that,
October 2024.
So,
right,
that's why, I mean, the urgency is getting the free money. So I would make it contingent upon the free money.
you know, I mean, if you
Chairman?
want to, but I mean, we have the money to pay for it outright if we have to.
But I think the contingency is the only way we can do it, as town council is suggesting, because you've got a PFAS loan to pay for, so it has to be contingent on that, or whether you have to find another source of funding, because you're dipping into your source of funding to pay for the
Right.
PFAS issues.
Wait,
So
Scott-
contingency is the only way to do this responsibly.
Scott, where is your retained earnings right now? I mean, over the last 2 years, we've spent so much money out of retained earnings.
It's up around 900,000.
That high?
Yeah. Well, because
Combined, or that's just water?
between repairing meters and our rate study, the rate study that we did
Yeah.
and then updated,
Yeah.
that raises rates to a point where what it does is it's seeding the retained earnings a bit and anticipating so that we're not, we could have, zeroed the rate increase for a year or 2 years, but then we're gonna have a 60% increase.
Right.
Where we have a
Well,
little
you-
bit
you-
and we.
you gotta
and-
build-
and
you gotta build that up
increment-
because you got loans to
increment it,
pay for.
And therefore you have a less of an increase.
Say, I don't have any issues. I think that it probably should be done, they're gonna require it. Maybe they don't, I don't know, but if they
And-
require it, they require it.
We hear all the time about what happens with lead,
But,
especially with children. We
And
need
to make a
need to
a
get it done.
personal comment on this, and I'm not gonna speak for anybody on the board here, but this is now the second time massive project comes to us in the nth hour. And we don't have an SRF loan document to look to make sure there's not a bunch of strings attached. Maybe there isn't, but we don't have that in front of us. We're the FAA, we're making a recommendation.
I
A
can
financial recommendation to the town, not just to the selectmen, but to the town to approve something. We have very little information on this to actually make a recommendation. So, again, I'm very disappointed that we don't get this information to us until you say, you gotta do it now, or we lose money.
We didn't have the information on this up
Right,
until a
and that's
couple of
why
months ago.
I wanted to put the brakes on it slowly, so we can get a little bit more information to find out exactly what this is all about. Do we have to do this?
as-
Are we actually gonna get loan forgiveness?
As for the characterization of a massive project, I'll give you a $6 million or an $11 million, those are big projects.
This could be a
This is
big project.
$200,000
Yeah, but-
engineering firm.
But once you do
contract.
the engineering study and you got 500 lines of lead out there that need to be replaced, who says that we're not replacing it?
Any
Or
house
your
built
department's not
after,
replacing?
any house built after 1985 is
I think
considered
you've
to be
got as much
lead-free already.
information as you're gonna get in this room. So now it's all, you just continue speculation. So either we gotta,
All right,
agree, all we have is the information you have, and you can make a recommendation or not.
okay,
Is that fair?
that's good with me.
Alright.
Well, that's it for financial audit. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation at this point is that we ask town council to take a look at the article. I think everybody's on the same page with adding the contingency, contingent upon, and vote to accept this article with town council's edits, as you stated here tonight. I don't think we have any choice but to make it contingent upon. Otherwise, we still have the PFAS loan to pay off, so we have to make it contingent upon successfully getting the 100% forgiveness loan.
Plus, I think they have it in the bank, just in case, after that.
I think that money's spoken for, but that's fine.
I mean, if it came to it.
I don't know.
It's not like it's coming out of the general fund. That's my point.
So that's
But I
my
know.
recommendation for you to act on. And I'll make that in the form of a motion if I could vote. Maybe Mr. Marcy would. No?
You want us?
Oh, he's got
It's
a
part of the FAA review stuff.
Okay.
We're still in the,
Discussion.
public hearing.
public hearing.
Gotcha.
So we done with the financial articles?
Yes, sir.
What's next?
We exit out of the public hearing and take a vote, or we could go ahead and straight into reviewing the Board of Selectmen's recommendations, which will go significantly more quickly.
One vote or two votes? So we don't need a public hearing for, or we need a separate public hearing for the other vote?
We could do another public hearing, and just continue on as we are and go right to the
Doesn't
Selectmen
make sense to
stuff.
do two.
Okay. Move on to
You
that.
agree, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, Mr. Chairman, to the non-financial, non-zoning articles. And the both committees, I've been discussing with town council, there's certain things that we can't act on at the special town meeting. And those would include all of our zoning articles.
Excuse me, Mr. Administrator. We goes with Jeff?
Jeff is
We
still
need-
on the phone.
Jeff.
Jeff, you wanna hang on another 45 minutes or so? No, we're gonna just continue on with the non-financials, all right?
These are the ones with the town clerk, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so it would, Mr. Johnson, would be Article 16. Well, let's make sure, because that changed, too.
It's the salt storage.
So it's gonna be Article 15 through.
Article 15, shared driveway standards, to establish design standards for shared driveways. See if the town will vote to amend the Dudley zoning bylaw by inserting underlined language, shared driveways shall meet the following design standards, and then there's nine or so additional standards. Any questions on any of those?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we're gonna, some of these, time planning board has the hearing, because some of them have to be done at a annual town meeting as opposed to a special, and I would just check with Mr. Blake to make sure that that's the case.
I know your general requires an annual. I don't know that your zoning does. I can certainly look that over if you would like.
So I know, okay, so the ones we were gonna act on tonight, Mr. Chairman, Article 18, per bylaw at the annual town meeting. So we're gonna move, I'm gonna ask to move that to FY '23 and take that off of this warrant. So Article 18 would be removed. Article 19, we're waiting for clarification from the town clerk to see if it's necessary for this article to even appear on a warrant. We may be able to remedy the Scrivener's error without making it an article to vote on. I don't think we got a decision yet on that. Jeff, did you get anything for Article 19?
We have not heard anything from, it was from the AG. We have not heard anything from the AG.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, just to be on the safe side, I would ask that we would just review Article 19 and the Board of Selectmen decide what their recommended action would be. And if it turns out that we need to remove it prior to posting, I'll go ahead and remove it. So Article 19 is the Scrivener's error correction. See if the town will vote to amend the Scrivener's error on Article 24. The annual town meeting warrant dated June 22nd, 2020. We would be deleting the word commending and replacing it with commencing. Town council has told us that it should be self-explanatory and not require an article to do this. So that would be the only change, and we would be removing the word commending, replacing it with commencing for that article that was passed 2 years ago.
I'd agree with I'd agree with that because the fiscal year doesn't commend anything.
Correct.
It's not a person typo.
Yeah. Okay, the next one, Mr. Chairman, Article 20, Town Administrator, Town Clerk is the local marijuana tax Scrivener's error. So it's at one point, and it was May 21st, 2018, we voted to tax the retail sale of marijuana at a rate of 3%. At some point, it showed up as 2% at the DOR. After we listened to the tape about maybe 2 or 3 dozen times, we were able to hear 3%. And we believe that DOR will approve that correction without having to have it go to the form of an article and be voted on. So we would want to, of course, be taxing marijuana retail sales in accordance with what the town meeting voted in 2018 at the rate of 3% as opposed to 2%. We heard it on the tape. We're gonna have DOI make a decision on it. We're gonna give them the same thing that we listened to, and if we don't need to vote on the article without objection, I would ask that the board allow me to remove that. My recommendation otherwise would be to approve it as written. Okay. Article 21 must be done at an annual town meeting, so I would move that. I would remove Article 21 and move that to the spring of 23. So get Article 22 and 23. I think we're good on those. And Mr. Blake, you thinks that the Article 12 would be okay as written. Article
Zoning articles?
Yeah, these are zoning articles. Yep, we've reviewed them.
Okay. Planning board is going to have a public hearing on the articles, make a recommendation to the town meeting. So at this point, I'm asking for us to take a few different actions. The first one would be, if there's no further questions on any of the articles, to close the public hearing. Then ask the FAA to vote on their financial articles and recommended actions to town meeting. And then I would ask the Board of Selectmen to vote on article requiring recommendation by the board and vote to approve this warrant to be posted and signed.
Let's start with the first one. Close the public hearing. Anyone have any concerns about that? Close the public hearing at 8:42. Mike, you okay with that?
Yes.
What's next on that laundry list?
So now the FAA, we would ask them to vote on the recommendations for their financial articles
Okay.
that we just went over.
So FAA will take up through Article 11. Lawyer? 1 through 11, and then 20.
22 and 23.
22 and 23.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I can just interrupt and remind, with the advice of legal counsel, allow me the ability with Jeff to adjust the form of any article on the warrant without changing the ultimate meaning and intent that's already here tonight.
Okay. I'm going to just go through each article. If anybody wants to hold on anything, just say hold. Article 1, 2, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Does anybody want to hold on any of those articles?
No.
Okay. Articles 22 and 23, well, 22, does anybody want to hold on that? I'm going to say hold on that
Yeah, I
article. You want to hold on it? And Article 23, is there any? All right, does anybody want to make a motion, Articles 1 through 11 and Article 23? As far as a recommendation from the FAA. Anybody got anything on those?
Okay, I make a motion that we accept Articles 1 through 11 and Article 23 as written.
Second.
Okay. You all set? Any discussion at all on this?
Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
the playground is a go or a pass over?
We got it. To go.
I agree with the councilman, let the town decide.
Okay.
And then one more clarification, Mr. Chairman, the carpet replacement is a go or a pass over?
Anybody want to? So we didn't hold on the carpet. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Let's go back. Do you want to hold on the carpet?
Yes, I think we were gonna hold on it until we got to see what the endowment language looked like.
So hold on, which one's the carpet one?
Article 7.
So we gotta hold on Article 7. So why don't we wanna have a revised motion excluding Article 7 and Article 22?
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chairman, one more interruption.
Okay.
Article 22 and 23, can we just can we vote on those two, and just for clarification, because we went,
Yeah, that's why I put a
So
hold on
long into the
22. I
debate.
put a hold on 22 for that reason. All right, you want to amend that motion?
Okay, make amended motion. Yeah, we accept Articles 1 through 6, Articles 8 through 11, and Article 23 as written.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on any of that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so Article 7, carpet replacement. Anybody want to make a motion on that?
Make a motion to pass Article 7 over to the spring meeting.
Okay. Do we
Second.
pass over Article 7.
just pass over?
Yeah.
Not the spring.
You recommend that it be passed over.
Right, okay.
And we got 22, did we do that one?
Nope.
No, we're just
Still voting on
Article 7. Is there a second on passing over Article 7?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then Article 22. The only reason why I put a hold on that, or is it 23 or 22?
22.
The only reason I put a hold on that is just language for contingency. I'd like to see the language and then make a recommendation at our next meeting. Do you have any recommendations, Mr. Administrator?
We don't have another meeting. It's gonna be posted on the 6th. So this will have to be passed with the understanding that if this is what the FAA wants to do, the discussion relative to the contingent vote is defined or written by town council and added into the warrant.
Anybody hear that?
I don't know, that's all
How
right.
about, I move to recommend Article 22 contingent upon qualifying for loan forgiveness, for a loan forgiveness program. I don't have the actual, but, and then I will write that in.
Okay. Anybody want to say so moved?
Motion to accept Article 22 with the contingency that the monies will be refunded through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust,
Through a loan forgiveness.
a loan forgiveness.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that's it for us. With the condition.
We'll do it to approve or remove the written.
The board's pleasure. Board of Selectmen Chair calls for FAA to vote on town meeting recommendation for each non-financial, non-zoning article and vote to permit TA with the advice of legal counsel to adjust form of any article on the warrant.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, that's a mistake on the agenda. Board of Selectmen Chair calls for Board of Selectmen to vote on town meeting recommendation. Is that gonna be a fatal error, Mr. Blake?
No, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Scrivener's error.
Thank God. This is why you're here.
We voting for the same one, Mr. Chairman? This says non-financial, non-zoning. We're doing the financial ones as a board?
You're gonna vote on the warrant as a whole,
Okay.
to approve the warrant
All right.
to be posted.
All right.
Approve the warrant even though there's gonna be some changes.
With the
Technical,
Understanding.
non-substantive changes to the wording.
What's the board's pleasure? Someone do that word salad?
I'm gonna try, Mr. Chairman, if you'll
Thank you,
allow
Mr.
me.
Morrissey.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the FAA's recommendations to place those, you have to read them, all the article numbers they approved on the warrant.
No.
No?
We're moving to approve the recommendation discussed for the articles, the Board of Selectmen making recommendations on, and then you're going to approve the warrant as decided upon, and so we can post it.
So the whole warrant?
Correct.
That's kinda what I just said.
No, you said FAA, it's gonna be a whole shooting match.
Well, what they just approved. And it, oh, I see what
Approve the
you're saying.
warrant.
Oh, it said non, okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the warrant as written and recommended by the FAA as they've discussed, with the usual conditions of making the non-substantive changes. Is that enough?
Sure.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous.
That's all you do.
All
right.
That was easy enough, wasn't it?
Does anyone have any concerns about me moving departmental communication up? No? Police chief, anything further?
One thing, Mr. Chairman. Wednesday is Coffee with a Cop Day. That's back in action again. So we're going to partner up with Nichols Public Safety and have it up at Davis Hall, up in their lobby, up there in their whatever their foyer areas up in Nichols. So anybody's welcome to come up there between 9 and 11. But that's just what we'll be doing this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fire chief? Water sewer? Highway?
Quickly, we're gonna be milling on Dudley Southbridge Road on either Thursday or Friday this week, and paving will be following next week. And also, we had crew putting up some of the Hometown Hero banners today, and that'll continue over the next day or two. So you'll see them along West Main Street.
Great program, thank you.
Awesome.
Treasurer collector?
Good evening. Two quick things. Knights of Columbus were supposed to have a toll booth Saturday. It was rained out. The rain date is this Saturday. Thank you in advance. Appreciate it. We also have next year's set up. And to everybody who went to the Apple Festival, or more importantly, bought tickets at the collector's office, thank you. Wonderful place. Even though it was raining, it was still bustling mid-afternoon, so glad to see that place getting some traction. Thank you.
Thank you from the FAA. All right, board member comments. Mr. Landry.
Chairman, I'd just like to thank everyone for their time and patience this evening, and that's it.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Marcy.
I'll echo Mr. Landry's comments. Always a good discussion when we're talking through the issues. Hopefully some people watch this in advance of the town meeting. Hopefully you have great attendance. Again, things happen when you show up. Put some things on there, like the playground that, if people want it, they should come participate. So thank you for that. Also want to take a look at the Hometown Heroes that Jeff's team put up there. I think that's really, really cool. It says a lot, that we take pride in our local veterans, including my colleague, Mr. Landry, who you'll see on a pole down by the fire station. So make sure you go check him out, Mr. Landry. So thank you, everybody.
Propped up against one. Not literally.
Signing autographs on Tuesdays. I'd just like to thank you, Amanda, after many years of other stewardship, just taking over, navigating the responsibilities of cable access. I appreciate people giving a little space to grow and bring us forward, and maybe save your cracks for some other time. That's it. With that, what's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.